and welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. I'm Katya, and today I have back Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Thank you so much, Santhip, for joining me again.
Namaste, Katya.
Namaste. So today we are going to talk about the big shift that's going to happen in a week, actually in 8 days. On the 17th, we have a nodal shift. So we have Rahu in Taurus now going back to Aries, and Ketu in Scorpio going back into Libra. And the signs, they stay in a sign for 18 and a half months, and it takes 18 and a half years for them to return to the same sign. So these are patterns that have really punctuated, especially world events. And you can really see it through the news. But in our own life, when these, shadow points change houses in our own chart, because they're shadow points, they reveal a lot of things to us that remained hidden for a long time. And so they're very poignant for our destiny and our fate in this lifetime. And I mean, it's just amazing how there's so much revealed through these. So today we've prepared a PowerPoint where I researched the historic events when the nodes were in these signs. And oh, by the way, did you see yesterday on the news that the ship Endurance from Shackleton, when he went down to the Antarctic, it's been discovered. And if you go back to our video from 1.5 years ago, that was one of the things that we predicted, was that we would find some discoveries at our poles, because during the cycle we're in now, at the very end, Rahu and Taurus, Ketu and Scorpio, we had an expedition, Shackleton's expedition to the South Pole, which was 1915. And then there was another expedition to the North Pole. And so it's just amazing how these patterns reveal so much. So Santhip, would you like to tell us a little bit about your take on, just general Rahu and Aries and Ketu and Libra?
Well, Rahu in Aries and Ketu in Libra is a very important, placement actually. Very important transit. So Aries is the first sign of the natural zodiac. It is the beginning sign and all that. So usually anything placed in Aries will actually make you begin something new. That's how they say. A new cycle is about to begin for you. So now Rahu in Aries is going to begin a entirely new kind of way of thinking, new kind of paradigms, and that will be brought forth into the world,
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, Rahu is actually considered to be a planet that does good in Aries, according to a lot of astrologers. Aries in many ways is actually having a Rahu nature just by itself.
Right.
Rahu is of course considered to be out of the box thinker, makes you do unconventional things, makes you go against the tradition. If you carefully look at the qualities of Aries is also like that. They're stubborn, they want to start something new, they want to handle things differently, all that. So They are very egoistic, which makes you think about Rahu again, right? So Rahu and Aries is actually, Rahu in Aries is not as bad as a placement, to be frank, in a natal chart and all that. But however, Rahu will give this more tendency of Aries to come out. So it's you're more likely to see people trying to do more individualistic kind of things. You're going to see there's a big rise in personalized kind of thing coming up. So for instance, right now there is a completely new field in medical science called as personalized medicine. So they basically, instead of making generic medicine, it kind of personalizes to you. So that kind of thing is going to become a big thing. And more importantly, Rahu in Aries, though Aries is the sign of war. So we can already see how that's developing. So that kind of energy is going to bring up a little bit more. But of course, more importantly we also need to watch out for the signs of combat or signs of war, which we are bringing in into our own lives. What are we fighting against? Now, of course, there are some genuine things we'll have to fight against, especially like the things that are unjust within our own life, things that are not in balance in our own lives, and that be a big theme. So Rahu Ketu in Libra is going to force you to confront the fact that, okay, have I been being too diplomatic for too long? Have I been in a situation which I don't feel balanced enough, and so forth. And that kind of situation is going to be revealed very strongly right now. Now, Rahu in Aries is going to launch a lot of great athletes into this world. So that I can say, people who are having a lot of, you're going to see the rise and prominence of some important legendary athletes actually. Some great boxers are going to come out, some great footballers, some great football players, all that, so you can see that kind of thing becoming very, very common. And we'll be seeing some great beginnings of new kind of technology. In fact, when Rahu is, and remember, Aries is a sign having a lot of other important qualities, such as, it is linked with goats and rams and all that. So you're going to see a lot of the whole meat industry is going to go through a lot of transformation, in my opinion. So that kind of thing will happen. And also, I would also add that this is the sign where Sun is getting exalted, Saturn is getting debilitated, and also Mars is angry with Mool Trikam. So these three planets, planetary influences, are very important to consider actually. So Saturn gets debilitated is happening in the Bharani Nakshatra, which is a challenging nakshatra in general. So Bharani Nakshatra is a nakshatra where which is linked with the womb actually, right? So you have this particular point where people have to go through the isolation stage before something creative comes out of that. So that's very strong Bharani Nakshatra thing. And just like how you would be born in the womb. Now, Rahu being in Bharani Nakshatra for sure will begin to activate a lot more groundbreaking breakthroughs in with regard to reproduction, reproductive sciences. You are going to hear about some very powerful surgeries and all that. But then also, Ashwini Nakshatra is also connected with Sun's exaltation point. Now, when Rahu enters into Ashwini Nakshatra, we'll begin to see a lot more a big explosion happening in the hydrogen economy over the world. So right now there's a big shift happening towards hydrogen and all that. So that kind of thing can easily happen. At a personal level though, Rahu in Aries would require you to become more physically active in your life. So that's a normal thing. So you might find now that Corona thing is kind of coming down completely. A lot of people are going to be very active into the gym and taking care of healthcare and fitness and all that. That kind of thing is going to explode again. And I'm very confident
all got fat during COVID, so
yeah, I'm sure we all did. And now is the time to shed off that fat, right? So that's a thing that will be an actual thing we'll all feel a drive for. The other thing is also with Rahu and Aries, there is the tendency to watch out for is a tendency to headbutt really strong. Aries people like to headbutt,
willful.
So it's like a willful, yeah. So that's a challenge actually. So usually these natives have to, usually in general, you have to watch out for this tendency for increased aggression actually. That's a very important thing. So that's one thing the world over people have to watch out actually. But you'll begin to see those kind of things playing out. Definitely there will be some aggression, kind of a real conflict kind of thing. People are just more heated. You cut someone else on traffic, or you are subject to cutting someone on traffic on the road. You might find that kind of discussion getting into a bigger problem and all that.
Right, road rage.
Road rage is a real thing, yeah. So that's an Aries problem actually. Road rage is a real problem. Now the other aspect with Rahu and Aries is also usually Aries is a sign that is also linked with the military forces or the armed forces, as I mentioned. So you are going to see a lot more transformation, a lot of changes happening in the military around the world. So perhaps this might also create some kind of new military force around the world also. I'm inclined to say there's going to be a lot more action on that front. And more importantly, I would even add that when the present forces are will go through a big change in many ways. I'm inclined to say world over, the whole military is going to be revamped in a big way. That kind of thing will also play out for sure. At the same time, you'll also see a lot of these operations or sting operations that will just play out in a quick way when Rahu is in Ashwini Nakshatra also. Ashwini Nakshatra is connected with quickness actually. And I would also say Ashwini Nakshatra is also connected with Aries is also having a movement quality to it. In fact, if you carefully look at a ram, it will just climb up to the top. So usually if you observe a sheep or a goat or something, it will just like make a mess of everything. So you're going to see that kind of thing going on. So a lot of, I think if you thought Afghanistan was a disaster, you're waiting to see some more bigger disasters yet. So in my opinion, that kind of a thing is still waiting to happen. So that's another one of those things that will play out. Bharani Nakshatra is a very interesting nakshatra in my opinion. Saturn gets debilitated here, so you're going to find this. In general, there is Bharani Nakshatra is associated with procrastination, with delays, obstacles, and all that. But then here with Aries, you're going to see at a personal level, you're going to see obstacles or delays that you have created yourself actually. So most of the time, it could be like through other circumstances. But in Bharani Nakshatra, you really have to watch out for. Am I procrastinating a lot more? Things like that. So that's a real problem here with Bharani Nakshatra. But having said so, I must add that because it's Rahu, and because Bharani Nakshatra is a point where Saturn gets debilitated, and Saturn is having a link with Rahu, since Saturn is considered to be the lower form of Rahu. Rahu is considered to be the higher expression of Saturn. You might begin to see some kind of illness that is making you feel older or something like that. So some kind of health could be like some kind of weird illness, some kind of Saturn-related age kind of illness, that kind of thing. And Saturn is also come with cold thing also. So there is a tendency for someone to feel more cold. I mean, of course, the cold time the winters will have its own challenges in my opinion. But then there will be this problem with cold thing in general. So in general, if Saturn is not doing well in a chart, Rahu transit over Bharani will actually make you face those Saturn problems. That's one thing.
What if your Saturn is in Aries?
Then you have to be more cautious in general, So that's one thing. Usually I would say that if Saturn is in Aries, Rahu will force you to work on those issues no matter what. Now, actually, Rahu transit over Saturn is quite good for career, actually. So you might be focused on important structural changes for your career, put in new foundations for your career, things like that. That is quite good, actually. But again, it won't be easy. You'll have to change it and you'll have to put in the work and all that. That kind of thing is also expected. Usually, in general, Bharani Nakshatra or Aries in general is also having a link with, you can call them as a link with the goddess energy a lot more, in my opinion. Definitely, Aries can be linked with Kartikeya. Aries can be linked with Hanuman also, or with goddess Kali also. All these fierce goddesses kind of thing can be strong. Now, one thing I can simply say, I've observed that Bharani Nakshatra is linked with Amazon as a company. Amazon, if you can, with Amazon, the company Amazon. Yeah.
Like warrior. Female warrior.
Well, what is the definition of Amazon, right? That's a female warrior, exactly, right?
So, female warrior.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you'll see. So in my opinion, that you can. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens at Amazon over the next couple of years. So there are some speculations about the company and all that.
Hey man, look at Ukraine right now. Freaking Miss Ukraine is out there with a gun, man. I am so proud of them, honestly. I'm just like, wow. And you're going to see more of that too, because women, it's just like Mars debilitated in Cancer. It's the female warrior protecting her children, and by God, don't hurt the children around us, we put them into shame, that's the kind, because we come from an emotional place,
Yeah.
So I think that's really going to come out. And like what you said about earlier about, when Mars is in Aries in August, conjunct Rahu and Uranus, that's when the war energy is going to be really ramped up.
Yeah. So we might feel it at a personal level also. So it's important to be very mindful of that. Am I being more aggressive right now? Mars is very good for energy. You might feel high energy. It's important to utilize or channelize that energy, in my opinion. So you might have to utilize it productively rather than target it at your loud ones. So it's a challenge usually. usually I would say that with when you have that high energy, it is always great to problem solve, work on new things, all that. So usually, as long as you're directing it towards a very positive expression, which is good for you long term, that is good. Now,
Yeah, like martial
Aries is
arts, like you were talking about,
different.
Mars, the best example of Mars you can see through the different martial arts. I mean, this
Yeah,
is the year for
yeah.
that.
In fact, you're going to see a lot more martial arts becoming popular. I can say that a lot of people are gonna. There'll be some movie that'll be released which will be like making martial arts a thing again. So remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger came, the whole fitness industry went through a complete transformation. So something like that could also happen in martial arts also again, in my opinion. We might be seeing some new martial arts superheroes actually. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm also inclined to say a lot more. There is a lot of revolution that will happen with the car industry, the automobile industry. So you're going to see some more new kind of automobiles. People are going to, electric cars is becoming a thing right now. So you're going to see that kind of thing becoming more. I also mentioned hydrogen cars, hydrogen-based cars is also going to go through big shift. A lot of transportation projects will be beginning and all that. So that kind of thing can also happen. Now, usually Rahu in Aries will force you to begin something. And the challenge here is that, you have to focus on maintaining that initial enthusiasm and finishing it also. It's a very important thing, actually. And usually what I've seen working out is also like usually with Rahu in Aries also, you're going to see new kinds of technologies come up in very powerful ways. So you're going to see a lot more now that there can be a real competition on the technology front. I mean, that's always been the case. But Rahu in Aries, you're going to see the whole technology sector will go through a big shift. I mean, already there's a lot of challenges with chip shortages and all that for automobiles. So you're going to see a completely new kind of technology come with regard to automobiles also. And here I want to highlight one fact. Rahu is also this real you're going to now see I must add this, and just because it's Barney and all that, Barney is also coming to sexual intelligences. Barney Nakshatra natives have this problem with that. So sex addiction and all that is a real problem here actually. And Ketu Nakshatra, Ashwini Nakshatra, which is a nakshatra falling in Rahu, in Aries, sorry, is a Ketu Nakshatra. So all these addictive tendencies is something you need to watch out for. Now, I think I'm inclined to say Rahu in Aries and Mars is a malefic in general. So in general, they say when Rahu and Ketu are transiting through signs of a malefic planet, it's more challenging. So of course, Rahu is going to transit over the malefic planet Mars. So it can create addictive issues and all that. So of course, as I mentioned, sexuality thing, escapism thing, drug thing and all that, you need to watch out very strongly, because right now you might have this issue, astrological weather pushing you towards that. More importantly, I would also say when there is also this tendency to, right now there is a new metaverse kind of thing coming up, so I think we are yet to see it, come out, because that's definitely going to open up a lot more escapism quality, more addiction thing and all that. So of course, there's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of, it's an exciting new technology in terms of many other things, but 100% you're going to see the dark side of it, or like a new kind of way how that's going to manifest in your life during when Rahu transiting to Aries. Now, when Ketu is transiting to Libra, now Ketu is general linked with a lot of past life karma, the tendencies, the things you are averted by. So Rahu is the thing you are attracted to, Ketu is the thing that you are getting away from. So usually if that be the case, Libra as a sign is usually connected with partnerships, relationships, and natural sound of the zodiac and all that. Now, first thing I can say is that when Ketu is transiting on Libra, you're more likely to meet your exes a lot. Your exes, your previous spouse.
Right, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
it's almost like a Venus retrograde, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. That's exactly right.
Wow.
So you might actually have they might just show up. It could be like previous exes, previous husbands, previous wives, ex-wives, ex-husbands, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends. Your exes in general, they'll just show up. Either they might show up in your either they might just show up in your dreams. Now that's a common thing. Ketu is the dream world in my opinion. And you do have Libra, which is a sign of partnership and all that. Now, the other thing is also people who are showing up out of nowhere right now when Ketu moves into Libra is going to be linked with your past life actually. So that is one thing you can see. That is also one more thing I can add actually. Libra is also the sign of business partnership. So there is a problem here. There are two sides to it actually. When there are beneficial planets involved, there is a natural tendency to form a new partnership which could work out actually, business partnerships and so forth. Whereas some pre-existing partnerships might also go through a challenge also at the same time. So it depends upon how the planets applies in your horoscope actually. So usually I've seen that when Ketu is actually going over Libra, there can be some, in general, there is a past life karma coming into your partnership area of your life. It's the easiest way to put that. And could be past life karma is good, sometimes past life karma is bad also. So that kind of thing is very important. Usually important solution, in my opinion, is worship of Ganesha for that. So if you pray to Ganesha, if you go to Ganesh temple, make him a sincere prayer, or you're chanting his mantras regularly, then eventually this past life karma, this Ketu problem, which I see happening in Libra, can be improved a lot. Usually it is normal to offer a coconut or to smash a coconut for Ganesha. It's a normal thing. You have an obstacle
Smash a
in your life.
coconut for Ganesha?
Yeah.
And
So
then
you
put
actually,
it on your offering table?
Well, ideally, it is best recommended to be done in temple, where there is a living Ganesha idol and all that. You would basically ask the priest to, you would give the coconut to the priest, and the priest would just smash the coconut in front of Ganesha. That's a traditional thing.
So if I were like to go up to Indianapolis to the temple, I could bring a coconut, give it to the priest, and then he would do a Ganesha mantra and offer it, and then offer it to the temple.
Yeah, offer it. He might sometimes give you one half of the coconut, one half sometimes is taken by the temple. Sometimes they use it and all that. Now, usually that is a common solution for any obstacle you're facing with Ganesha. You can actually get a coconut, you can offer it. And then now in some temples, they don't have that smashing stone. So sometimes they might actually, that's a different thing. But most of the, usually the South Indian temples in general, they might have that. But if you ask a priest, more likely he might figure out a way to get that thing also. That's one more thing. Usually it is common that depending upon a temple you go to, they might ask you your nakshatra at least, your name and your nakshatra. So you might have to tell your name and your nakshatra, and then they actually take the coconut and they smash it. Usually they'll say that and they'll have mantra and then they'll do a smashing thing. Usually it's a complete, there's a lot of things to that. There are many, it's a deep science actually. So there are many predictions you can make based on the how the coconut is smashed. Is the which half is becoming bigger? Is it the half of the eyes that are bigger, or the half of the lower? For instance, I can share one thing. I happened to witness one such coconut smashing thing done by done as a ritualistic way, and then the person who the coconut was smashed on the left, and the person who looked at the coconut said that okay, the half coconut is having two eyes actually. So the eye component, the half which is having the eye, is called as the masculine coconut component, masculine, the male part of the coconut. So since the male part was lower than the female part was kind of having higher thing there actually. So basically they said the money that was going to come into this place is low. That's what they said. So you can make a lot of prediction based on how the coconut was smashing correctly or not. So sometimes if they say,
so it's like reading tea leaves or coffee grounds.
Right, exactly right. Yeah. So you can do something like that. So you can look at the shape of the coconut, you can make observations about it and all that. That's one thing that can be done. Usually I've seen though with coconut, it's a very powerful way. It's a very powerful way to get rid of any obstacles you are facing. So you have been having this persistent problem. It is always a good idea to donate a coconut to a temple, or to at least smash a coconut to Ganesha. Usually what I encourage is smashing is what I really recommend to remove an obstacle. But in general, if you want the deity to do things on your behalf, in general, to donate coconuts is also a very good idea. Usually my standard remedy to let go of any big problems you have is to donate 108 coconuts over a period of time to a temple. Wow. So you go over like 12 coconuts over 9 weekends, or you do 9 coconuts over 12 weekends or something like that. In fact, I had someone who tried to do it in 9 days, and the temple people were like, we are just run by volunteer, we can't handle it here and all that.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen that if you offer coconut to any temple, they do it, they are willing to work with that. And that's a bigger so it's almost like you are offering into the temple, and the deity, the god there will decide how the coconuts need to be smashed. That's also a different way to think about it. So that can
Well,
also be
now
done.
we can go back to the temple here because they were
Yeah.
closed during the pandemic for,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I stopped checking because they kept saying they were
Yeah.
closed, and I kind of was like, okay, I'm just going to wait till this whole thing is over,
Yeah.
but now it's time, and the food is so good there. So
Yeah.
it's time
I
to go
can.
back.
Yeah, I can really, that'll be quite good actually, especially if we go to temple and all that, that'll be quite good. In fact, Vishaka is a nakshatra connected with temple rituals actually. So Jupiter is, Vishaka is our nakshatra falling in Libra. It is after all falling in the natural sound of the zodiac, which is also a group ritual thing, something that is done in a large group and all that.
Yeah. Could you
Jupiter is also,
expound upon Vishaka a little bit more? Because that's one of the nakshatras I think is poorly understood by, at least in the West, I mean, it's the forked tongue, but yet it's victorious.
Yeah.
And people that I know that are Vishaka are very fierce.
Yeah.
Like you do not want to cross them.
Yeah. So yeah, usually with Vishaka, the big thing here is that you'll begin to see these natives do have. If you know the animal of Vishaka, you can begin to understand quite easily. It is the tiger.
It's what?
It is a male. It is the tiger actually.
A male tiger. Oh, well, and it's the year of the tiger. Also in Chinese astrology. Yeah. I think that's, there's some semblance there.
Yeah. So the male tiger usually are very ferocious and all that. So usually they like to have their food, they like to hunt for things and all that. They have that fierce thing going on. But interestingly, a tiger does not attack you if the tiger is good at attacking you if you are, it's just like a cat. If the cat does not see you coming, the cat won't attack you. Cat will attack you only then. If the cat doesn't see you coming, cat will actually attack you. But if the tiger is also attacking you, but if some villagers would actually paint a face on the back. So the tiger would think, okay, this person is looking at me, so that's the other way. So usually you can see a lot of sneaking, they like to sneak attack kind of thing. So a lot of sneak attack kind of karma is very strong. But sometimes they don't like to attack publicly also. But usually in Vishaka though, the energy is intense. So Vishaka, the deity is Indragni, which can help you see things in big picture way and the minute detail way also. That is also an easy way to look at it. It's also the left brain and right brain coming together actually. So these natives, one of the common questions I have, and when Ketu is in Vishaka, very good chance that these natives might actually begin to work on two different jobs at the same time, two different careers at the same time. That can happen. So usually I've seen lawyers who are tarot card readers. I've seen that. I've seen lawyers who are Jyotishis. I've seen a missionary like a Bhagavad Gita lecturer who's like a lawyer. All this. And
on the Libra or the Scorpio side, because Moon is debilitated at 3 degrees of Scorpio, in Vishaka. And to me, that's like, out of all of the debilitated planets, that's the one that seems to me, it seems to be the most problematic. Yeah, no doubt. Definitely the Vishaka Pada 4 is having problems. Ketu is in Vishaka Pada 4 right now. It is the beginnings of problems actually. You're beginning the 8th house kind of thing. Usually it is very important that these natives be very cautious or be very protective about their emotions actually. So there is a real problem. Emotionally, they might feel attacked. Emotionally, they might be fragile. And more importantly, they might be quite vulnerable also. And there's a real point of vulnerability. Quite vulnerable. Vulnerable, Knowledgeable. So usually vulnerable, so their vulnerability is quite strong here, so it's like people can actually attack. I actually had charts where placements in Scorpio where Ketu right now, a lot of they were subject to sexual predators actually. So that's a problem. So exactly. And it's the inability of the mother to protect the child. Yeah. Even if she didn't know, the ignorance is what caused the child to get sexually assaulted. Yeah. So that's a real challenge actually. That's a real challenge here. Now, with Vishaka, though, one common problem is this: you are more likely to meet bipolar people, kind of thing. Vishaka has its benefits in terms of facing some really
challenging projects and so forth. But there's also this tendency towards showing two faces, thinking like you are two persons, all that. So usually sometimes you'll see these natives are talking to themselves actually. That's a common thing. And that's
There's a lot
good
of
way
immorality, I think.
Yeah.
And with the immorality comes the guilt. And with the guilt comes the talking to yourself and trying to come to terms, you know. That's what I've discovered.
So it has a pro thing, it has a negative thing. So like any nakshatra, if there are a lot of benefits influencing, you might be talking to your divine self, which is great.
Yes.
You know, you're talking to angels and all that, great. But then if you have a lot of maleficence of what, you might be talking to the devil self, you know, so which is a problem.
Listening to demons.
Listening to demons, you know, so it's a real problem here actually. So usually with Vishaka though, one thing I can say is that there's a lot of splits can happen. There's a problem there actually. Usually I've seen that you kind of need to honor Ganesha to help make sure that the past life karmas are not coming forth. With Vishaka, one more thing is also this fire accidents can happen. Now, even right now, they say a lot of lightning storms are happening, you know, some weird lightning storms are happening right now apparently. So apparently I just came across a news article earlier where they say Australia was getting like 100,000 lightning storms or something, like within 24 hours or something like that. Some 100 lightning storms just popped out of nowhere in Australia or something like that. So some weird. So this lightning energy is a big thing actually with Vishaka. Usually Vishaka is having this fierce shield energy. You know, they are actually capable of protecting you actually. It is a sign of diplomacy. So these natives can be extremely diplomatic also, without a doubt. But of course, there is a challenge here. When Ketu is coming here, these natives are more likely to act headlessly. They are more likely to act instinctively and more likely to become impulsive and so forth, which is a challenge. And usually that is a challenge these natives are. They are like, I don't care. I don't just care. That's a problem. Of course, when you are having problems and all that. That's now for spiritual practices though. This is a great thing. Excellent time to pick up your spiritual practice. Vishaka Nakshatra is great. Excellent time period to restart any kind of fire-based practices. Excellent time period for that. Anything with fire, anything with candle, anything with rain, lightning, thunder, all that is excellent actually. That I cannot encourage that enough. Ketu will also go over Swati. Now Swati is a very strong social media energy. So in general, Ketu, when it's in Swati, I've seen these natives can be involved in YouTube videos and all that kind of
TikTok now.
Yeah, TikTok, yeah.
I finally downloaded it yesterday. Oh, God help me.
Yeah, so TikTok, yeah. So TikTok and all that, right? Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, all that. So I've seen usually these natives have a very important social media presence. They are involved in, social media and all that. Could be like they might have a love-hate thing going on with social media, which is a normal thing. But then when it's in Swati though, Swati is also conduit this dispersal of information. So sometimes your video which you make could go viral, or and I had a client who actually did some who wrote something on Reddit that apparently became viral, and she ended up getting a lot of good things there and all that from Reddit and all that. But then I can say that usually you'll begin to see a lot more viral kind of thing coming up like that, viral videos and all that. That kind of thing is very strong. Now here also with Swati, one other aspect of this viral thing is also bad rumors could also be spread about you. So it's like
the wind.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
wind god rules here. Yeah.
And then many good chance that when you're doing the traveling during this time, good chance you have been to this particular place in the past life. In fact, that kind of thing. You might actually, whatever places you're planning to visit when Ketu is in Libra and so forth, good chance you have been there actually. You traveled there. And
or maybe your ancestors came from there.
That's correct. Actually, your ancestors were there. You are linked with your ancestors and so forth.
Oh, maybe I'll finally get to go to Turkey.
Yeah. That'll be quite good, But Turkey is very famous for its, you will see, Turkey is famous for its bazaar, the Grand Bazaar in Turkey, right? So, in fact, a lot of marketplaces will go through a lot of changes. That's one thing I can say. If you're involved in a market, good chance they might actually be going through change and all that. Good chance you might see a lot of historical marketplace coming into modernity, that kind of thing could play out. All businesses could also have challenges here. At the same time, I would say Swati and Vishaka both are very trading oriented nakshatras. So very good chance you're going to see a lot more traders coming into the picture. A lot of people are going to get into all this trading and stock market and all that. You'll actually see that coming up. I can also
And a
say,
change in the marketplace too,
yeah,
like
there'll
changeover.
be,
'Cause what I noticed, and it's very Libra as well, the very first beauty influencer who started her own makeup line on YouTube, Makeup Geek, she's closing her doors. She just announced 6 days ago. She started it 14 years ago. And she's like, I can't, I just had a baby, things have changed. There's only so many factories that make makeup, and you have to stand in line behind Estee Lauder and Lancome and Maybelline, all these different companies that get to produce first, and then you get to, and with the pandemic, everything just shut down. So it's interesting you say that, because I think we're going to see something totally new when Ketu goes into Swati with the beauty industry.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. I'm definitely new kind of products, new ways of the whole beauty industry will go through a change, that I can say for sure. In fact, there might be new kind of products that will come, new kind of influences that will come. Very good chance that there might even be some very kind of unusual, unexpected partnerships also happening. So that kind of thing would also play out. And it's like the meeting of the minds, but happening in a, like, how is that even possible kind of thing going on? So that's a real interesting thing that might happen also. Now in Swati Nakshatra, one more quality here. Swati Nakshatra is a very big, as far as the planetary influences are concerned, there's a lot of action happening there. Just like how in Aries, you have Saturn getting debilitated and Sun is getting exalted. In Swati, Sun gets debilitated and Saturn gets exalted, because it's exactly opposite to Aries actually. So this is a point where Saturn is getting exalted. So you're going to see a lot more rise in women's rights, liberalism, a lot more important very important lawsuits will play out without a doubt. More importantly, I would even say there could even be some very important legal implications that is going to happen soon. Now, I think the whole we're going to see some more challenges for the law people also. Lawyers will have a tough time actually. Lawyers will have some challenges they might have to deal with and all that. Some historical challenges and so forth is what I'm inclined to say. So, and then I'm also inclined to say, now a lot of other lawyers will be awakened. The whole law field will go through a big transformation in many other ways. So could be like old, outdated laws are being reformed. You'll begin to see the legal system, legal machinery going through bigger improvement and all that. So in India and all that, the law system is horrible. You file a lawsuit, you get the judgment 10 years later. So that kind of challenges we'll begin to see a change here actually. That's how slow the system is. But here,
my husband was just saying today, you do not want to get in the US court system right now.
Oh yeah?
It is so slow.
Oh yeah?
Oh
okay.
my God. Like just avoid it if you can,
Yeah. So of course, now see, having said so, I must add that a lot of divorce lawyers are going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of divorce lawyers will make
There
money.
you go. That's Ketu and Libra exactly, isn't it?
That's exactly that. So divorce lawyers will exactly have a lot of things for sure. That I can say. But yeah, it is all linked actually. That's one thing. The other aspect also is that usually Ketu in Swati also one more. So since Saturn is getting exalted here, you're going to see a lot of people being involved in marches, like a lot more protest marches, that kind of thing. I would even say, I would also see teamwork, as you said. Also, I would say a lot of volunteering activities would also play out. A lot of, in fact, last time when Rahu Ketu was transiting over, when Ketu was transiting over Swati or so forth, was when the whole digital nomad kind of thing happened.
The whole
when
what?
People were the digital nomad, right? So the digital nomad. So someone who was basically like who will work the solopreneur kind of people, right? So people who will work from anywhere of the world. So any part of the world they can still work. The whole computing thing take off. Now you'll see the next aspect of that. So people working wherever, the idea of conventional office spaces is going away. I mean, that's already happening. Now it will be taken to a next level. You'll begin to see that a lot. I can also say that when since sun is getting debilitated here in Swati, this is the point where a lot of government authorities will have problems. I can definitely say problems with diplomats in the country, especially diplomats are going more likely to have problems actually. So in my opinion, so you'll begin to see a lot of breakdown and a lot of, I mean, already it's happening with Russia and all that, but then it's going to further go down actually. So there'll be like a crisis of sort, a diplomatic crisis of sorts that will play out actually, which is expected. So in fact, the sun getting debilitated, in my opinion, is a challenge for governments actually. All governments around the world will face challenges. It's almost like they are going to face protests and all that. But I won't say, more likely I'm going to say a challenge with China actually. That's what I'm inclined to say. Sun is actually connected to the eastern direction. So you can literally say that sun getting debilitated, you will see a problem with happening from the eastern direction. Simple as that. So it could be like Japan also, but more likely China actually. If you look at the world map, the China is the easternmost country. You know, China, Korea and all that. So you might begin to see some real challenging action which is not looked well from that, just because of those sun being debilitated there. I would also say that one more aspect with sun being debilitated is also this is probably the time period where at an individual level, people are going to feel their worst, the self-esteem. Self-esteem is going to be a challenge. Self-esteem will be hit during this time period. And usually it is an important time period to focus on things that you like doing more also at the same time. So it's important to focus on the self-esteem, self-confidence and so forth. One of the usual remedies here, and one best thing I've seen, because of Vishaka is also Indra Agni, Indra being the lightning god and Agni being the fire god. One of the best things to do, a simple habit and simple practice that can be done, is to light a candle at the morning time, exactly at sunrise time, and light a candle exactly at sunset time. So that's a very simple habit, especially if you wake up early and so forth. Lighting, you can light the ghee lamp also. So you can buy a brass lamp, you put ghee in it, you light a wick exactly at the moment of sunrise, exactly at the moment of sunset.
Yeah,
that's a very simple thing. Yeah, exactly. The same concept of Agnihotra can be applied, and it's an excellent thing to do during this time period. I've seen people who are depressed, who feel like they are surrounded by darkness and so forth. One of the best things to do is to actually start lighting lamp at sunset and sunrise. That's the easiest thing.
Well, the thing is that, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your whole neighborhood. Because what happens at sunrise and sunset is a phenomenon in physics called magnetic induction. And so when the sun comes over the horizon from where you're at, there's this draw. And what happens is when you light that fire, if you're doing Agnihotra and you've got your cow dung and your ghee, that fire goes up into the air. I think it's like 4.5 kilometers up into the sky. So, when you sage yourself, you're saging your property and you're taking advantage of that magnetic induction to shoot it up all over. So it's the most amazing, magic spell really you can do to protect yourself. And I've been really lazy about it through the pandemic. I was so good about it when I first started doing it. And then, I got sick and all this stuff happened. I just got away from it. So I'm going to get back into it because I've got so much ghee and cow dung and rice. It's time to start burning. Yeah,
I can highly encourage that. So if you approach that is one of the best things to do actually. If you can do that right about now is a perfect time, because you can actually work off a lot of karmas in Rahu Ketu.
And you have to do the mantra with it too.
Yeah.
If you guys, if you don't know what Agnihotra is, just message me and I'll send you the link to where to get the supplies and how to do it and stuff, because it's not difficult. You just have to be shown.
Yeah. So Agnihotra is very excellent remedy. I cannot say that enough. Agnihotra can actually Agnihotra is an easy way to bring about good luck and fortune, and more importantly, self-transformation in your own life. I've seen no matter what, if you start doing Agnihotra consistently, I've seen that 100% within 3 months, you will be a changed person. It's like you find this energy within, actually. So it's like an actual thing that happens, So it's a big energetic awakening that will happen with Agnihotra, that I can say without doubt. Now, Ketu will also transit through Chitra Nakshatra. Now, Chitra Nakshatra is connected with production techniques, and Chitra is also connected with pictures. You're going to see a lot of Instagram thing going to, Instagram influencers will have a different kind of karma. Now, Chitra is also having a link with bodybuilding and beauty products and so forth. Also, you're going to see that also. A lot more, the technical aspect of movies is also connected with Chitra. So usually you are going to see a lot more photographers pick that up, a lot more explosion in the photographic thing, changes in the photo. I mean, already the your mobile phone camera is doing, is 100 times more, much better than your, 10-year-old digital camera, whatnot. So that kind of thing is going to happen in a big way. And also you're going to see with Chitra Nakshatra, one more energy is that of Chitra is the point in Virgo sign of Chitra is where Venus gets debilitated. So this is the real relationship problem thing, in my opinion. It is a Mars rule nakshatra as well. So when Ketu is transiting through Mars rule nakshatra, there can be some challenges with regard to relationships actually. Now Chitra, usually I've seen the challenge here with Chitra is also come with progeny kind of thing also. Like
Progeny?
having a progeny, yeah. So
Children,
like your fertility, yeah. Fertility kind of issues and all that, right? Now in general, when Rahu is in Barney, Ketu's in Chitra, that can be a challenging time also in general for fertility kind of issues and all that. But on the other hand, you're more likely to gain some success with fertility kind of thing through the old ways. You're trying some herbs also along with the normal thing. I can really encourage that. Chitra, in fact, is also connected with a plant called as Bilwa. Bilwa is a the leaf of Bilwa is always comes in 3. And that is a plant that is always offered to Lord Shiva actually. So a very excellent remedy for Chitra Nakshatra transit of Ketu. And Ketu in general is also linked with Shiva also. If you honor Shiva, that is also an excellent thing. But for Chitra especially, this particular plant is considered to be very beneficial. Offering that Bilwa leaf to Shiva in your altar, that is an excellent thing. I can also encourage now, Chitra Nakshatra is also linked with a lot of robotics and all that. So you're going to see there's a lot of robots kind of thing coming into the picture.
AI.
Yeah, a lot of AI kind of thing. Now AI is also linked with Rahu actually. So this you're going to see a lot more explosion of those AI-based entities, and you'll see a whole explosion happening on that field for sure. But more importantly, I'm going to say you are more likely to see a very public demonstration of robots and so forth, actual robots in public in some of the countries out there. You're going to come across that actually. So in fact, there are some countries already employing robots, like I think in Dubai or something, they still have some robots and all that. You'll begin to see medical robots. Medical robots is already a thing. That can be one of those things that is coming up. I'm inclined to say a robot kind of thing will also play out in many other fronts also. That can also play out. Usually now the whole toy industry is also going to be Chitra. You're going to see a lot more challenges for them initially, and then a complete change also coming up. Some of the old toys also going to make a comeback also. That is one more thing I can say. With Chitra. Chitra is also going with puzzles actually. So you're going to see a lot more explosion on puzzle kind of thing also. So a lot more people getting into puzzles or a new kind of technology, new way of doing board games. Yeah, all that can also happen. Chitra is also now in general, Libra is connected with artists. You're going to see Rahu when it was transiting through Taurus, it was ruled by Venus. Ketu transiting over Libra is going to explore this Venus in a different way. Now, Rahu was like these artists who were trying to explore new technologies. Now, nowadays NFTs and all that is a big thing. But Ketu in Libra, you're going to see challenges for the artist actually.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, a lot of these artists are getting ripped off. People steal their art and then make NFTs out of it. And then how do you sue them?
Yeah.
What do you got to sit around, wait for God and karma to play out? Because, it ain't right. I don't know. How are they going to control that?
Yeah, so there'll be some legal challenges and all that. Now, having said so, there'll be some in general, this is not an easy time for any marriage. That is something I can say. Any marriage, Ketu and Libra will bring about its challenges. I am more inclined to say the marriages of artists are particularly vulnerable right now. Marriage of artists, big artists and all that, they have to watch out. Because just because they are carrying or they are dealing with a lot of 7,000 energy, they are dealing with a lot of people and all that. That kind of thing is challenging. And somehow it is, and more importantly, Saturn gets exalted in Swati Nakshatra for the 4. That is the Saturn is the planet of depression also. So usually the biggest thing to watch out for is your past life karma triggering any kind of depression thing. That's a big thing. Depression, anxiety, which is all this thing, right? Now, I don't think we are out of this mental health problem bubble yet. So COVID happened. Now we're going to see the impact of the COVID with regard to mental health publicly. So that's not a good thing. And that's a challenge also when Rahu is in Aries, when people can easily get violent and all that. That's what's one more thing. But in general, I would encourage an easy way to combat any of these health issues is to connect with a god or goddess who is fierce. Like Goddess Kali is excellent. Goddess Kali will remove all your depressive forces away because she'll be fighting against them quite easily. She'll help you in your own fight actually. Goddess Kali is excellent. Goddess Durga is excellent. Goddess Durga is very much linked with Libra also. In fact, Swati is a buffalo-headed demon. Buffalo is an animal there. And Durga actually defeated the buffalo-headed demon actually. That is the story. So if you connect with Durga's energy, that's excellent actually. Especially if you do.
Doesn't Durga ride a tiger?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Durga
and
is
it's the year of the tiger.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the tiger being connected.
Yeah, so listening to Durga mantras is excellent. Offering Durga, giving offerings to Durga, having a Durga statue on an altar and giving regular food offerings, all that I can encourage. Having a Kali statue and giving regular offerings is also excellent. I can encourage all that. Offerings kind of thing and all that is excellent. Fruit-based offerings, flower-based offerings, all that is excellent actually. The thing though is that with, I would also say that here there is a, Ketu and Libra will make a lot of psychics very public actually. So I can say that a lot of it's an excellent time period for people who are in the occult field in general, because Ketu will they'll be involved in more public thing and all that. You'll begin to see that as a force in general. But then I'm also inclined to say that there'll also be very public kind of problems also at the same time. So usually there is this concept of that what happens within the family, you keep within the family, right? But you're going to see the opposite of that. There's some real public thing going on. In fact, some very public split can happen. So family splits can also happen actually with this placement. Because if you can see that it's a technique actually. When you make the planet that gets exalted in Libra is Saturn actually. But Saturn, if you make Libra as the ascendant, Saturn is the 4th lord. So that's a technique actually. Look at the planet that is getting exalted, make that particular exaltation point as the ascendant and see what that planet is, what houses are those planets ruling. So you can get some more additional clues there actually. So Saturn is the 4th lord there. So that you can see some really challenging times for some families in general. Something that was stuck together because it was like a shaky thing in the first place, but then now it's like really the foundation being shook off and all that. So that can be a real problem here actually. So in general, I would say these are big families and all that. They just need to make sure diplomacy is maintained one way or the other. That is one thing I would say. Just make sure you're not making the fight public, keeping it low key.
Kind of like the British royal family.
Yeah, the British royal family. Yeah, British royal family will have a big problem. I'm inclined to say that. I have to say that. In fact, it's not a good time period for any kings actually. Anyone who is the king, royal, king or queens. Yeah.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth is, she's getting very weak.
Yeah. So
and I think we're going to see once, today is the 9th, March 9th. Mm-hmm. So I think, within the next week, especially the week before and the week after, because, on the 17th, it's the true node date. So tack on 2 weeks to that, and then you get the mean node date. And what I've discovered is that it seems to be like an event is triggered at the true node on the 17th. And then by the time 2 weeks later, we'll see the outcome. And I think we're going to see a lot of elders pass away once, you know, these points are passed.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah. So royal family will have a tough time. That I can say. All royal families around the world will have a tough time actually. So it's something they'll have to be prepared for. It doesn't matter if you're belonging to a British royal family, Gulf royal family. They will have a tough time. Usually, I would encourage to do more, to let go of this thing. One of the easiest thing to improve this energy is to actually do more charity, do more volunteering. Saturn gets exalted, so that tough energy has been dispersed around actually. Now, one best remedy, excellent remedy to do during this time period is to feed birds regularly. It's one of the best things you can do. Ketu is an air sign, the creatures in the air, right? Air level, as birds. That's one of the best things I can recommend. If that is done, that is excellent. I'm also inclined to say when you're more likely to see some a lot of very public kind of efforts, very interesting viral campaigns, marketing campaigns, all that good stuff will also happen. So we do live in interesting times when Ketu is in Swati and Libra and all that. So that will also activate some more bigger energies there also. But usually there's also, like I said, you also have to look at what your chart, what planets are there. So like if benefics are there, then could be like you might feel like letting go of the benefic energy, and malefics are there, you might feel like letting go of the malefic energy also. So both
Well, we're going to sell a house this year, so for me it's great, you know.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Like I want to let go of it. What was I going to ask? Oh, it'll come back to me. But I know. What do you think about cryptocurrency? What do you think is going to happen by the end of the year? Because some people are saying, oh, Bitcoin's going to go 100x. And I'm like, something's going to have to really drastically change. Because right now, like today, Biden announced that he's going to implement all of these measures on cryptocurrency. Because he's very concerned about, you know, where it's going and these huge dips they're going down in right now. And so what do you think?
Well, I do see cryptocurrency as a market, as an industry will begin to change, like in the sense that they will begin to adapt and some new forces will come into play. I'm inclined to say that cryptocurrency in general, in my opinion, cryptocurrency will face some challenges, but then you'll also begin to see some new kind of currencies coming into the picture also. That's also one more thing I can say. Some, of course, the older currency, they'll be stable. Older currencies will have some challenges for sure, but then the new currencies will also play out also, which will be, you'll have the next, Shiba or Dogecoin or something like that. That kind of thing I'm inclined to say. So that could be something that could actually play
or we find out who he is.
Oh yeah.
Did you see the tweet today from Elon Musk?
Not really. Yeah.
He had he spelled out Satoshi, whatever his name is, using the letters of these companies like Exxon and all this stuff. Pulled it out and he made, like, he was implying that it's not one person, but it's several companies that came together to make Bitcoin. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, it is a possibility. It'll be interesting. But if those kind of, I'm inclined to say some powerful secrets will come out, that I do think will come out for sure. And people are not going to be happy about it also at the same time. So that is also one more thing I can say. Usually, I'm inclined to say also like, with Bitcoin in general will have a challenging time. Ketu, when it's transiting over Libra and Saturn and all, Saturn's exaltation point will not be good for Bitcoin in my opinion, because that's one of the oldest currencies. But then what I think will also happen is that something new will also come because of Rahu will be in Aries actually. So that will also bring in some new technology, new coin, all that. And whatever coin comes during this time period, I can say you'll go on for that. That's how I predict actually. Of course, in cryptocurrency, the markets will go through a challenge. Ketu in Libra will create a challenge for the markets. So that is a challenge for sure. But then what there will be an advantage that will happen briefly when Jupiter re-enters. Well, Jupiter is in Pisces for some time. Probably I would say when Rahu enters into Ashwini or so forth, at that point I'm inclined to say something big and something different can come. I'm more inclined to say when Rahu enters into Bharni Pada 1 specifically. Whenever that happens, Rahu will be in Leo in the Navamsha. That can be a big deal. In my opinion, that whenever that comes, that can be a bigger thing because it is going 5 houses into Leo, which is a fire sign. Leo is also the 5th house, which is connected with wealth and all that. At that point, you might make some money. But usually I'm inclined to say Bitcoin, just based on the planets, Saturn influences, since Bitcoin is something, one of the oldest currencies, it will have a challenge. Ketu being in exactly around Ketu transit of Libra. But the moment that transit is also over, it will begin to improve a lot also. So in my opinion, like the first 1/3 of Rahu's transit, basically 6-7 months from March or so until September, October, there will be a challenge. And after that, it will begin to improve a lot actually.
So maybe by the end of the year, we'll pick up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think this morning it was like at 42,000. Yeah. So it's something drastic is going to happen for it to go up to 100K.
Yeah. So that'll. I'm more inclined to say it can happen, but perhaps more by the end of the year, more than the middle of the year or so.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the PowerPoint that I've prepared.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay, so we have Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra. It's from March 16th until November 29th of next year. So 18 and a half months. Oh, and also I wanted to let you guys know that I started a Patreon page. So if you're interested in my videos and you want to see them early before everyone else, head over there and sign up. Because whatever I put up there will come up here 2 weeks later. So it's going to be a new format. So this is all of the dates that Santhip was just talking about. And, don't forget Rahu and Ketu go backwards. So they're going to start, at the last sign and then go backwards. So here's the actual dates, and they're on my website too. And then these are the indicators of the signs and how these planets behave in these signs. These are just some of the basic qualities. Rahu in Aries rules the 1st and the 8th houses and indicates these things. And Venus rules the 2nd house and the 7th house and rules these things. So you can see how these play out with the nodes. So I started going backwards to see what happened in previous cycles when the nodes were in these signs. And I found some themes, and they are Mars seemed to produce heat waves, electrical blackouts, terrorist attacks, and sports events that were, significant. Libra seemed to bring attempts at peace during war, music and art, and law. And these are just some of the events that, I saw here. And this is from the last time, which was 2003 to 2005. And that I remember that summer, the highest temperature ever recorded in the UK was 101.3 in Kent, England. It was the first time the UK has recorded a temperature over 100 degrees, in modern history. And then the next day, a heat wave in Paris results in temperatures rising to 112, leaving about 144 people dead. August 11th, same day, NATO takes over command of the peacekeeping force in Afghanistan, marking its first major operation outside Europe in its 54 history. August 14th, wide-scale power blackout in the Northeast United States and Canada. I remember that one because all of New York City had a blackout, and we were in northern Indiana at my husband's family's lake cottage. And I remember sitting there, my daughter had just been born. She was only about, 3 months old, barely 2 months old. And I remember sitting inside in the electricity with the air conditioning on, and I was nursing her and I was watching TV going, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in New York City right now. Like, how would you go get diapers? It's terrible. I will never forget that. And then 2 days later, Cristiano Ronaldo makes his debut for Manchester United and the Premier League in a 4-0 home victory over Bolton Wanderers. And now he's one of the biggest names in soccer. August 19th, a car bomb attack on United Nations headquarters in Iraq kills the agency's top envoy, Sergio Vieira de Mello, and 21 other employees. August 27th, Mars makes its closest approach to Earth in nearly 60,000 years, passing this far distant. Yeah. And here Mars, is going to be with Rahu in this cycle. So it's going to be interesting. And that's another thing with NASA right now, they're preparing the Mars mission for 2030 is when it's supposed to take off. And it's really, they're looking for recruits, man. So, if you want to go to Mars, now's the time. Sign up. August 28th, the next day, an electricity blackout cuts off power to around 500,000 people living in Southeast England and brings about 60% of London's underground rail network to a halt. And again, rail network, that's Mars, getting, automobiles or, things that get you from point A to point B. August 15th, China launches Shenzhou 5, its first manned space mission. And that's another thing you're going to see with this cycle because of where Jupiter and Neptune are and how they're going to be interacting with Mars to make all of these space missions and, civilians going into space as well. And then I thought this, and look at this is just as soon as it changed. I mean, this was so intense during this time of 2003. The rest of the cycle had a lot of this stuff, but farther spaced out, and I was just shocked at how much happened from August till October. So the last thing that I put on here was October 31st, which is Halloween. Bethany Hamilton, aged 13, has her arm bitten off by a shark while surfing in Hawaii. And there is a movie about that. If you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. It's one of the best, like you just can't believe what this girl had to go through and how she's overcome it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I just want to add on that the Mars thing. It was a very good thing which you added. I'm inclined to say more Mars mission will come. I'm definitely going to say, Elon Musk will definitely start his Mars mission thing. You'll begin to hear that kind of thing this time also. Because the Mars, Elon Musk himself has Mars in Capricorn, which is aspecting as Rahu. So I'm inclined to say that also. It'll be interesting to see on that one. But yeah, definitely that's a good point. Definitely a lot more Mars missions coming into the picture for sure.
And then that was just 2003, right? So the next year, I tried to pick out things that were, spread out across the year. January 12th, the world's largest ocean liner, the Her Majesty RMS Queen Mary 2, makes its maiden voyage. NASA, January 25th, NASA's Opportunity rover, MERB, lands on the surface of Mars. February 4th, Mark Zuckerberg launches Facebook from his Harvard dormitory room. And here we are going to the metaverse now. February 18th, up to 295 people, including 200 rescue workers, die near Neyshabur in Iran when a runaway freight train carrying sulfur, petrol, and fertilizer catches fire and explodes. March 29th, the Republic of Ireland becomes the first country in the world to ban smoking in all workplaces, including bars and restaurants. Well, I mean, to me, that's like, okay, banning smoking, that is so Saturn debilitated in Mars, you know, because Saturn is, I mean, he's really an air sign. He's, you know, he's really Aquarius. So I thought that was interesting. But, you know, in the year 1999, it was already banned in California. So it was really, the rest of the world was finally coming around by 2004. April 8th, U.S. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice testifies before the 9/11 Commission. So we start that whole ball of wax. And then June 8th, the transit of Venus between Earth and Sun occurs. I don't know if you remember that, but a friend of mine who's a dancer, she was in Brazil at the time, and she did this beautiful video of, she was Venus, you know, crossing over across the sky. And it was just so, just the sight of it, the videos of it were so moving to me, because you just got the intensity of Venus. It was like Sun behind Venus was just, I know Sun and Venus don't get along, and Venus has issues when Sun's with her, but my goodness, I felt the energy of her being pushed towards Earth. And then July 16th, Martha Stewart is sentenced to 5 months in prison plus 5 months in home confinement for lying to federal investigators. Now, what was she guilty of? She was guilty of insider trading. That would not happen today. You know, I mean, I don't trade stocks. I let my bankers do that. That's what they went to school for, you know. They're good at it. I let them do what they're good at. But, you know, I know that today, I mean, that would not happen. So it's interesting that during this cycle, the law, as you said, has changed and has improved. August 3rd, the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty reopens after being closed since the September 11th, 2001 attacks. And I went to New York City 6 months after 9/11. And one of my very good friends was a cop in New York City. And he took me down to the site. And it was one of the most moving things I've ever seen. Just being there, you know, it's like, you know, those moments in your memory when you've woken up and you're like, oh my God, I'm really here, you know. It was one of those things. So here we are. What are we doing now? We're reopening after the pandemic. September 17th, Tamil is declared the first classical language in India. I thought that was interesting. That's very Ketu in Libra, you know, especially Swati, because it's Saraswati, you know, language. September 18th, Farm Aid 17, held in Auburn, Washington. Performers include Willie Nelson, John Mellencamp, Neil Young, and Dave Matthews, Lucinda Williams, Steve Earle, Jerry Lee Lewis, Blue Merle, Tegan and Sarah, and Mark Broussard. So what I'm seeing is, because, you know, Sun is exalted in Aries, Saturn's debilitated, they're opposite, right? K2 is going to be in the, you know, the opposite. It's the relationship between the soil, which is the Capricorn side of Saturn, and the Sun. And what is that? Farming. So I feel like farmers are going to come into focus this cycle. A lot of people are going to become farmers. There's going to be more interested in nourishing the soil. Right now, our soil is very depleted, and we're going to have to do a lot to, you know, keep this planet fed through this cycle, especially with the war in Russia and Ukraine. You know, I think like over half of the world's wheat comes from those two countries. So we're going to see some, you know, possible starvation situations, I think, because of this Saturn and Sun, you know, soil and vitality issue going on. And then September 21st, construction of the Burj Dubai starts. Now that's, you know, the Burj is the tallest building in Dubai. And it is, I think, you know, when you think about pioneering efforts of Mars, especially Rahu, which just is obsessive and makes everything, you know, expand. You can see that here in this construction in the engineering. So that's 2004. Now I went to the last cycle, and I just pulled out some major events that I thought fit into this time, these themes rather. Gorbachev becomes Soviet leader. Now I don't know much about him, but we see Russia's in focus again. I mean, that's enough for me. Namiri ousted in the Sudan, again, war. The Rainbow Warrior sinks, and that is the ship from Greenpeace. So again, peacekeeping efforts, Ketu in Libra is seen here. Achille Lauro seized, again, more war stuff. TWA Flight 847 is hijacked, you know, more terrorism. US becomes a debtor nation. Now, this is something that, you know, inflation has risen here. It's gotten really bad. I think that, you know, we're going to be not only are our bodies going to be on a diet this year, but our budgets are going to be on a diet too, you know. And so I hope that you guys have saved, or at least, you know, made your life more stable so that you can work through this and not have to experience all of the lack, you know, the lack of luxuries, right? Reagan tax reform happens. Now I remember 85. You know, the beginning of the 80s, we had horrible, you know, inflation and horrible, like it was like we're kind of coming into now. And Reagan was kind of a savior. He came along and just was, you know, a force that lifted us up. So we might see another, you know, Reagan figure come out right now. I'm not saying Trump or anything like that. I honestly don't think he's going to come back. I keep saying he's going to run again, but my God, he's going to be 78 by the time the election starts. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a younger version of Trump, somebody who people, you know, see as a great figure that can lead us out of this economic hardship. Colombian terrorists execute 100 people, including 11 judges. So again, you know, war, terrorism. So this is all 1985. And then this was interesting. 1966. Now, you know, the 60s were very revolutionary. So there was a lot of stuff because we had Uranus and Pluto together. That's why all of these things were more intense during that time period. Anti-Vietnam War protests from 1963 to 1966. The Miranda rights come into being after the Supreme Court overturns the conviction. On June 13th of a confessed rapist. So what are the Miranda rights? Just for international people that may not be, you know, familiar with American law. Miranda rights are when you get arrested for something, the cops have to read you your Miranda rights. You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to an attorney. You have, you know, right to a phone call. They have to read you your legal rights when you get arrested. So that started Here again, laws changing. Aberfon disaster in South Wales. A slag heap from the coal mine slid down Merthyr Mountain. I don't know if you've seen The Crown on Netflix, but it details this event very well. And basically, the Queen of England, whose sun is in Aries, exalted exactly, when this happened, she had this inability to show emotion. I mean, she always has had this, but this particular event really brought out her stoicism. And she really got slammed for it. You know, it really cost her a lot, bad reputation, like you said. The US Department of Transportation is created, very Mars, very Rahu and Mars. The name miniskirt is attributed to Mary Quant, who also went on to popularize hot pants in the later years. And I thought, man, that's Ketu in Chitra, you know, the designer, the fashion designer making new designs. Yeah. The Batman television series starring Adam West debuts on ABC. And that's, for me, that's personally very telling of the changes of the time, because my mother's first husband was the voice of Superman on Super Friends. And Casey Kasem was Batman. So all of that started during this time. Yeah, that's very nostalgic. I mean, I wasn't alive yet, but my sisters told me stories about this, right? The Batman television series starring Adam West debuts on ABC. The popular television show Star Trek debuts in September. And so what was I saying about space travel? It all started here. The popularizing of space and astronauts and, multidimensionality and time travel and all that stuff started with Star Trek. So that started during one of these cycles. NASA launches the Lunar Orbiter 1, the first US spacecraft to orbit the moon. Soviet Union lands Luna 9 on the moon in February, and the US follows on June 2nd with the Surveyor 1 soft moon landing. And Ronald Reagan enters politics on June 7th, becoming governor of California. There's a lot of pioneering things going on here. Then we go back to 1948, the cycle before that. So we had Indian pacifist and leader Mahatma Gandhi is murdered. Again, martyrdom, war, and changing laws. Israel is declared as an independent state. The first Polaroid camera goes on sale at the Boston Jordan Marsh department store, which I think, photography is very Chitra. And it's Swati too, but I mean, really Chitra, British National Health Service Act creates the NHS. Health stuff is usually Virgo, but Chitra spans both Libra and Virgo. And plus Mars is vitality. So, Aries can be seen through this. The World Health Organization, also known as the WHO, was established. So that's going to really come back in to focus because of the pandemic we've just gotten out of. The founding of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, took place. The Treaty of Brussels, also known as the Western European Treaty, forms. The Summer Olympics, also known as the Games of the 14th Olympiad in London, happens. Long playing records made of vinyl and played at 33 RPM came out. And that, of course, led the way to what we have today. And the US and UK begins a massive airlift of food, water, and medicine to the citizens of West Berlin following the Soviet blockade. Well, what's happening now? Ukraine, so stuff in Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe must have a lot of stuff in Aries. I know the UK does. The UK has lots of planets, like 6 or 7 planets in Aries. So they're really going to be affected. But especially Eastern Europe, Soviet. Then we go back to 1929. Well, now it gets real interesting because we had the Wall Street crash of 1929 occurred. It happened over a span of days, but by the 28th and the 29th, it came to a head and it started the Great Depression. So we're definitely going to see financial downturn. You guys are going to have to really be careful with your finances. And, just hang on for dear life. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre on February 14th happened here. Museum of Modern Art is created in New York City. The San Francisco Bay Toll Bridge opens. Vatican City gains independence from Italy. The very first Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars, were presented. And I think, didn't you say statues were very K2, like flags and statues, things that symbolize something are very K2? The first running of the Monaco Grand Prix Formula One race. I mean, hello, cars, Mars. The German airship Graf Zeppelin completes a round-the-world flight. And we had a horrible world influenza epidemic. So hopefully that's not going to happen again. I mean, in my county, they've only reported 3 new cases of COVID, but it's like, well, how many people are they testing? So who knows? I hope it doesn't come back. And then we go back to 1910, 1912. Immigration into the US. The immigration into the US hits an all-time peak with 8.8 million immigrants over 10 years from 1901 to 1910. The Idaho Big Burn, August 20th to the 21st, 1910. The Great Fire, also known as the Big Burn or the Big Blow Up, began as a forest fire, as they often do. By the time it was contained and put out, the fire had burned nearly 3 million acres of land throughout 3 different states, Idaho, Montana, and Washington. More than 80 people were killed, and it is often called the worst fire in the nation's history. I hadn't even heard about that before I did this research. The first auto electric start, just like you were saying, we're going to have more electric cars. The first electric self-start was installed in a Cadillac by GM. Up until this time, all cars needed to be started by cranking a starting handle, which was hard work and caused multiple minor injuries when the car backfired during the starting process. Can you imagine? The Manhattan Sweatshop Fire. The fire breaks out at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company in Manhattan on March 25th. The building was overcrowded with women, immigrant workers, and poor safety standards, including the doors to the stairwells and exits were locked, allowing no exit from the fire. I mean, if that's not K2 and Libra, I don't know what is, First Indianapolis 500, woohoo! It's going to be here very soon too, month of May. Month of May in Indiana is very exciting. Now, I personally have never been to the 500 because my father would never allow me to go. He said, hell no, over my dead body is my daughter going to this event. And now I don't even care, right? I just watched it on TV, but it's very exciting here. The first ever running of the Indianapolis 500 is won by Ray Haronaut at an average speed of 74.59 miles an hour. And now they're going over 200 miles an hour. It's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty cool though. I love racing. Sinking of the Titanic. The Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. The Titanic had been described as the world's most luxurious floating hotel, which is unsinkable, and was only 5 days out when she hit an iceberg and sank in the Atlantic, with the loss of many lives. You know, I think I've seen that movie Titanic too many times because now I'm like scared to death to go on a, cruise boat. I swear to God. I mean, I can handle a few hours, but a few weeks? No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, then we're going to go back. 1892. May 28th, the Sierra Club is organized by John Muir in San Francisco, California. And if you haven't seen the PBS documentaries on Amazon Prime, they have a whole section that's just for PBS documentaries. And there's a whole mini series on the forming of the national parks. And it is so good. It's so good. Like you just thank God they created these national parks. How many countries have as much, foresight to save the most beautiful parts of the country? It's magnificent. I highly suggest that. Then we have June 6th, the Chicago L, the elevated railway opens, which if you've been to Chicago, that's, they don't have subways, they have the L, it's lifted up. June 7th, Homer Plessy, who is 1/8 African heritage with light skin, is arrested for sitting on the whites only car in Louisiana, leading to the landmark Plessy versus Ferguson court case. Again, changing laws, that was a big thing during that time. Then we go back, 1873. We have the Panic of 1873 triggered the first Great Depression. Isn't that interesting? In the United States and abroad, lasting from September 1873 until 1878-9. The economic downturn then became known as the Long Depression after the stock market crash of 1929. So they renamed it. Currency in the 19th century was based on specie, which I'm not much of a financial person, but it was a change in law. There was a change in how money was calculated. January 30th, Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne is published in France by Pierre-Jules Hetzel. Now, again, that's at least here in the United States on TV, on PBS, they had Around the World in 80 Days as a mini series, and it just ended like last month. So it should be up on Amazon Prime now. And it's so good, you guys. That was like my husband and I's favorite thing to watch every Sunday night. And now it's over. I hate it. It's like, you hate it when a good book ends, you want to read it again. You just want to stay in that book. So good. Major events for 1854. March 28th, 1854, France and Britain declare war on Russia. Here we are again. Launching the Crimean War. Hello, Ukraine, which largely surrounds the protection of the rights of minority Christians in the Ottoman Empire. History's most famous nurse, Florence Nightingale, helps reduce the death count by 2/3 by improving unsanitary conditions. Weren't you talking about female warriors? That's her, man. Yeah, that's the female warrior right there. In the 1840s, when Rahu is in Libra and Ketu is in Aries, so switched, right? 9 years, or yeah, the spiritualist movement began as cholera broke out. Now, cholera is something that's found in the water. The water's not clean, and so a lot of people were dying from bad water. Grieving families sought comfort in seances. President Lincoln's wife held them at the White House after losing several children. So you're going to see a lot of, this is the inverse of it, but you're going to see that spiritual element of, Ketu coming out with the other side, death, losing people as a result of war and things like that. That's going to be a theme as well. Now, here we have, and that's all of the history. So here we have our very first solar eclipse, which is coming up very soon on April 30th. And it's going to go over south and west, Southwest and South America, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and Antarctica. The moon is at 16 degrees Aries, Barney, and then the fixed star Sheraton is the star of Barney that's being activated. So this is a deeper look at this nakshatra, and we have bodily injuries, unscrupulous defeat, destruction by fire, and war or earthquakes that happen with this star when it's activated. So this is where the eclipse is going. So it starts in Chile, and then it goes over Argentina. Now, because it's exiting Argentina, the last cycle, Chile was really activated, but I just had a feeling that Argentina was going to be a little bit more affected. Because let's face it, not many people live down in this part of Chile. They mostly live up here. But a lot of people live down in this part of Argentina. So that's why my intuition was saying that was going to be more affected. So I pulled up the charts for the United States and for Argentina. And you can see for us, this is happening in the 8th house, and for them, it's happening in the 7th house. So, you know, 8th house is transformations, rebirth, death, but rebirth. And then all of those nakshatras are getting activated, although Ashwini is not present, but look at all of that in Bharani with Rahu and Kritika. So Santhip, what do you think about this?
Well, I would definitely say a lot of Bharani is not an easy placement for eclipse to happen. There will be a lot of isolation issues, depression issues, anxiety, and all that. Challenges, well, Argentina will definitely, I think that could be like an economic crisis happening in South America. That's what I'm inclined to say. There could also be like some challenges, and in general, definitely there'll be that destruction, those kind of challenges associated with Bharani also. Bharani also this theme of isolation actually. Could be like some karma around isolation and all that. I think right now the whole world will go through a serious restructuring reform, and that's when you might begin to see that. It's literally like what are the after effects of Russia conquering Ukraine. That's when you're going to see all that. So that time is when you're going to see all this problems around. Of course, Argentina is, can bring about this. In my opinion, there can be some kind of crisis happening in Argentina. It could be food crisis, could also be like something, an economic crisis, all that. Again, what is interesting is that the Rahu is going to be in Kritika, but the eclipse is happening, Bharani Nakshatra. So it's a partial solar eclipse actually. So that is also the impact of partial solar eclipse is not that bad, but still it will be strong. There will be some government crisis happening there and all that. I'm inclined to say some challenges with regard to Argentina. Historical challenges can also happen, or some history around Argentina is going to have a problem actually. That's one more thing I can say. Some historical thing could come out because Saturn is also something connected to time actually. Some past atrocities can come into light around Argentina or some other countries of the world. That's also one more thing I'm inclined to say. I think fixed star Sheraton, right? That's what you mentioned. Bodily injuries. So definitely, you don't want to be traveling then by on eclipse day and all that. Usually, I would say unscrupulous defeat is also could be like some defeat happening also. Fire and war is already happening. Like I was just saying, I was seeing this very interesting when already California fire, and what you shared previously with the big fire and all that kind of possibility could be happening probably around the eclipse, not exactly on the day, but around the eclipse. Earthquake is interesting. Earthquake in my opinion could happen also, perhaps after the eclipse also. Usually I would say there'll be a problem. The global warming kind of thing will become a problem in my opinion. That will be like a real you'll begin to see some initial problems around that. So Barney is also kind of flooding actually. So you're going to see some flooding kind of thing. So that'll also be one of the themes that will play out also. But yeah, in general, eclipse happening Barney is not sexual diseases kind of thing, sexuality kind of thing. That kind of thing can also have a big thing. So like, there might be a problem around sexuality. I mean, already there's all this, LGBTQ kind of thing going on. So that kind of thing is going to have a big, they will have a problem first, but then they'll go through a transformational sort also. That's what I'm inclined to say. The whole movement, the sexuality front. Also, like I said, challenges around sexuality is also going to happen here. That's a different thing. Challenges around, and a lot of challenging energies will also come out actually in general come with sexuality. So that is something we begin to see and we'll begin to have to deal with and all that. That kind of thing and also be a thing. What I'm also inclined to say here is also with in general, Aries is coming with head actually. So usually you might begin to see, and Burnie is also almost a portion where it's beginning to enter into your face. So like I'm inclined to say you might begin to see this weird skin kind of disease and all that.
Huh.
So something done with head or something with face and all that. Something along that front. So usually Burnie is also gone with age actually, age as a problem and all that. So age related disease can become very strong here also. Eclipse and all that. Some new insights, new problems can be revealed and all that. But because it's been happening in South America, more likely Argentina is more likely to have a problem. So it's like perhaps the Latin American kind of countries are having a thing, or perhaps some Argentina is they find out Argentina is perhaps supporting other countries or whatnot. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say business partnerships.
Yeah.
Secret business partnerships are going to come out.
Yeah, which could be some challenges actually. Argentina will have a trade challenge to be frank. So I think they'll be forced to do something new because of the trade and all that. That kind of thing is what I'm inclined to say. For the US, it's in the eighth house. So at least there'll be some eighth house challenges. So again, problems and so forth, unexpected problems, all these natural disasters kind of thing. That's one thing. So flood kind of thing is what I'm inclined to say. Fire and all that, as you covered also. Earthquake will be interesting to see. Earthquake is also possibility in Barney also. Usually there can be a fertility challenge. So there can be a food problem also. That's one more thing I'm inclined to say. So that's one more thing that could potentially happen also. A crisis is building. That's the best way I can frame that. So that is going to begin around the eclipse actually.
Okay.
Yeah, Chile is interesting. I'm inclined to say something. Chile is very interesting because it has the Mayans and all that, right? If I'm not mistaken, there is a
Mayans are from Mexico. The
Mayans are from Mexico.
The Incas were from Peru.
Yeah.
But I think there was a cousin of the Incas that were from Chile. But like I said, not many people live down in that very southern rocky area. Most are little north.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I felt like, it was first crossing Chile, but I really felt like Argentina was going to be affected. I don't know what their chart looks like. I did not get that far, but it was just my intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then 2 weeks later, on May 15th, we have the lunar eclipse, which is total. And it's going to go over South and West Europe, Southwest Asia, Africa, much of North America, South America, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and the Antarctica. So here's this path. And you can see Brazil is getting slammed. I feel like Brazil's really going to get it hard during this. So I'm wondering, I feel like there's something going on between Argentina and Brazil that's going to transpire during this time. The moon is at 1 degree Scorpio in Vishaka, and the point of debilitation for Scorpio is at 3 degrees. So it's within that 3 degree orb. And so I think all of that debilitated Scorpio stuff's going to come out. And I know that they align it with a different star in, it's Russellhawk, which is a part of Ophiuchus. And it's very valid, but there's another star that's it's a little bit further off the ecliptic, but it lines up exactly with this point. It's called Unak al-Hai, and which means the heart of the serpent. And in a snake, the heart is actually in the neck. So it's not like the heart of the lion Regulus, which is, in the middle, or it's at 6 degrees Leo, but it's more towards the middle of Leo rather than, in the neck. It brings immortality, accidents, violence, and danger of poison. Heart of the snake is in the neck. So the poison thing I always associate with Ketu. And, Ketu is in Vishaka as well. It's on the Libra side, but it's at the very end, and it's very close to the moon. Like if we could see Ketu, we can't because it's a shadow planet, but if we were to see it in the sky, it would be very close to the moon. So for the US, this is happening in the 12th house, which is foreign lands, secret enemies, dreams, other dimensions, endings. And for Brazil, it's happening in the 10th house, which is government. So I just feel like the government's really going to be shooken up during this time in Brazil, and a lot of immorality is going to come out. A lot of things, that associated with medicine and poison as well are going to come out. Good things, I think. It's not always negative. But I feel like a lot of scandal is probably going to come out during this time. So what's your take?
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely a lot of sexual scandals could come out. Definitely, I mean, if you have been having a sexual scandal of sorts in your own life, watch out for sure. I would also say like even usually in general, there could be some problems with affairs. Like saying that before. I would also say like here, at least for the world stage, I would say problems with scandals on the scandals of medicine could easily come out. There could be some accidents also.
Pharmaceutical companies getting into trouble.
Yeah, that's one thing I could say. Could be like a lot more lawsuits and all that. I'm also inclined to say here there is this danger of poison, so there will be some poisonous kind of problems, like problems with chemical poison or accident connected with the poison, all that kind of thing can also happen. The other thing I also say is like here violence is a problem, so there can be some unexpected big violent event or something happening probably around Brazil and all that. But of course the lunar eclipse is going to be more emotional actually, so you might feel more emotionally attacked. So that's the best way I can frame that, more than like an actual physical attack. So that's a different thing. But yeah, in general, some political scandals is what I'm inclined to say. South American and all that, some especially political scandals, kind of with leaders, and also political scandals, kind of with women also. Both can also play out with Vishaka. Now, Vishaka is also this two-phase thing. We talked about that. So two-phase energy could also be triggered actually. So that you might begin to see some two-phase thing, and in a literal way, so one person is literally having one thing, and their two-phase energies might come out also. That's a problem. So that's one thing that will come out. Usually with moon is like usually kind of local politicians, local level, state level and all that. Moon can also be celebrities also. So some problems for celebrities could also be the case actually right now.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I would also incline to say a lot of females are going through a tough time right now. All mothers in the world will go through a tough time right now. So especially right now, emotionally and all that particular thing is very strong. So usually lunar eclipse days when you will, at least women out there in South America and all that, they are going to have the biggest challenge there actually. There'll be some real attack on their traditions, cultures and all that, which they'll have to watch out for in the future. Now this is the peak. Around the eclipses when they might begin to feel it happening a lot actually. Usually I'm inclined to say Mars, a big accident or a construction failure or something like that. That probably thing is what I'm inclined to say actually.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and by this time, we're going to have Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus all up in Pisces. So Venus
Oh
will
yeah.
be exalted.
Yeah.
So that's going to help. But
Yeah.
Jupiter and Neptune together in Pisces, this is massive flooding. Oh, you
Okay.
know, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw the video of Australia, the bridge that got like they've been
Oh, yeah.
showing it on the Weather Channel.
Yeah. Actually, the
The worst
bridge.
flood in Australia just happened.
Wow, yeah. So the bridge is actually come to Libra actually. So it makes sense actually. Bridge is Libra, so it makes sense. Ketu and Libra. Some bridges collapse can kind of thing they need to watch out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I am not looking forward to this. We're our basement's been flooding. We have to get a new septic, and it's just a matter. It's like all these steps have to happen, you know,
Yeah.
when you're putting in a new septic, and it's yeah, I can't handle any more flooding. It's just
Yeah.
too much. Okay, so now the next one we have is a solar eclipse, which is again partial, October 25th. And it's happening in Europe, South and West Asia, Northeast Africa, and the Atlantic. And the moon is at 7 degrees of Libra, Swati. And this is the fixed star Arcturus, which gives riches, honors, high renown, self-determination, and prosperity by navigation and voyages. So in this chart, notice that these things are very Neptune, and Neptune has gone retrograde again and gone back into Aquarius, which indicates water as well. And for the United States, we have, oh, I'm sorry, I put this one, yeah, DC's down here. So this is happening in the second house, which is about money for a country, you know. For Kyiv, it's happening in the 11th house of communities. And for New Delhi, India, it's happening in the 8th house. So let's take a look at the path. I thought this one was really interesting because look at that. Goes right over Ukraine, Russia, Afghanistan, India. You know, I think this one is going to be a really intense one. What do you think?
Yeah, this is going to be a big thing. I think this is when the diplomats around the world is going to have their hands full. I'm inclined to say that, you know, this is when it can also be challenging for these countries. The whole Europe after Ukraine and Russia, right? We're going to see that. So I think that's going to be a big challenge here. Of course, it will be financially, you'll begin to see the financial impact of the decisions US has been making the second half of this year. And of course, that is going to affect the markets in a big way and all that. India happening, I think it's 8th house, so unexpected problems again. Might begin to see this problems with spies and usually secrets coming out, hidden enemies, all are getting activated very strongly. Usually I'm inclined to say also in Ukraine itself, we can see the eclipse is actually visible there, but it's happening 11th house. Now Ukraine is trying to rebuild. They're trying to come up to terms after what is the life after invasion, all that. So that kind of thing is being activated. So that is a bigger theme there actually. And then of course for US, it's happening in the second house, like I mentioned. This is the problem when the food crisis could be a real thing. So make sure you're stocking up by
food, mouth.
Yeah, and second house and all that. So make sure there is enough food that you have something for winter, something beans or something like that, something so that you don't go hungry and all that. But it will be a temporary thing in my opinion, but still it will happen. So that's one thing. Nowadays shelves are running out of food also, right? Inflation, all that, the cheap thing is already gone.
Well, and the war in Russia, you know, they control so much of the wheat in the world that by this time we could definitely see some famine in some poor regions.
Yeah, that can be a real problem. So that's going to be a real challenge also. So they'll have to definitely do that. I'm inclined to say there is a need to do some. There'll be this because the eclipse is happening in Libra also. It's a challenging time period in terms of there can be some public crisis coming with some political crisis that is coming because of a you know, of a leader and all that. So usually I'm inclined to say a politician or a leader might go through an unexpected problem, which is kind of giving its ripple effects upon the rest of the world. Now, in general, this is a tough time. This will be a tough time period in general. Eclipse in any Kendra signs in general stuff. Eclipse in Libra will create a challenge around the markets and all that. So that will be a tough time in general for the eclipse. But then, because it's happening second house for US, like the food thing and the money thing is going to be a big thing. So now this is when the crypto markets will go through a big surge, in my opinion. So the second half is when, after the eclipse is when, a lot of different kind of things will come with the crypto. Then they'll begin to view crypto in different way. Other things will also come up then also. But yeah, this eclipse is not great actually, in my opinion. This, of course, Venus is kind of making things down. I'm inclined to say there could be a crisis happening with countries. Probably I'm inclined to say the whole Middle East will go through a problem. I think some of the eclipses going through Middle East or, well, Southeast Asia, Northeast Africa and all that. But then usually I can say there will be like a crisis happening in Middle East region. I say this because the eclipse is happening in Swati. Swati, if you carefully look at the eclipse point, that is very close to Sun's debilitation point. So the royal families, the problem which I mentioned, royal families, this is a problem. This is eclipse will trigger that for sure. That is guaranteed to happen. So royal families, you will see, I'm inclined to say Middle East, a lot of Middle Eastern countries are ruled by royal families. So I'm inclined to say because of that, you will find some challenges here, especially in those countries linked with royal families. The whole Middle East, most of the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, all that is royal families actually. They are not democracies. You're seeing this kind of a royalty thing going on. Monarchy still is present there. Even the European monarchies will have problems. All the European monarchies, whatever that's of the Belgium monarch, all that, they'll also have their own problems actually. So the monarchies is going to be in general, this will also be extended to the governments. We'll begin to see the break of the present union of countries, and bigger different unions will come forth. And I am inclined to say it could be in the future when Rahu enters into Ashwini is when the next eclipse will be a key thing in terms of new beginnings and so forth. So this year, a lot of breakups are going to happen. Public problems will happen. That kind of thing is going to happen. And then then after that, the peace after that will come. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this whole thing with Ukraine is going to come to a head during this time.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and then last one for the year, we have November 8th, a total lunar eclipse, North and East Europe, Asia, Australia, North America, much of South America, Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, Arctic, and Antarctica. But look where it goes. Moon's at 21 degrees Aries, Bharani, Sun's exaltation point. Oh, wait, it's at 10, isn't it? Is the Sun's, it's at 10 degrees, isn't it? Okay, I'm sorry. That was a typo.
Yeah, there's actually Saturn's debilitation point, though.
Yeah, debilitation point. Yeah. So the Sun's exaltation point is 10. So this activates, again, the fixed star Sheraton. So these things are going on, but look where this goes over. Right over Hawaii. So I think we're going to see some massive changes in Hawaii. For them, this is happening in the 9th house of law. And I don't know if you know much about what's going on there, but there's been, massive court drama and, over land rights between the native Hawaiians and the colonists, us, who are coming in and trying, taking their land and kicking them off their tribal land and putting resorts. I think that that's something like we were talking about before about the sun and the soil and this whole Sun and Saturn thing. It's going to play out big time here for them. And this whole, 3rd, 9th axis of law and also being vocal about what's going on. And there might even be some attack, passive aggressive attacks. There's a lot of groups that protest these, big developers. So we definitely could see some protests in Hawaii during this time, but laws changing as well. And for the United States, it's in the 1st and 7th house. So I think, again, it goes back to our business relationships are going to be affected. So what would you think?
Well, it's good that you looked at Hawaii. So I think definitely protests is gonna happen with regard to legal things and so forth. So there can be some challenges during that time period. Could be like a protest around lawsuits, certain big public lawsuits coming up and all that. Definitely Libra is also going to travel and hospitality industry also. So they might go through their own challenges here. Could be like challenge around that and all that. So for sure. Now in DC, it's actually happening on the ascendant actually. So you're going to see this whole the follow-up to the solar eclipse around that time period. So that's when I'm inclined to say there'll be a challenge actually. So usually the lunar eclipses will be challenging. So there will be an emotional challenge. So this is when I think the people are going to feel, even though it's with good benefits and all that, but still there will be some challenges because of Saturn aspects upon Ketu. That's when I'm inclined to say there'll be lot of usually Saturn is like a scarcity related problems. So you might begin to see, first thing is that your the luxury items are not coming up, then you have food scarcity, right? That's when I'm inclined to say a scarcity kind of thing would play out. Usually I'm inclined to say that definitely a food related thing is seen, but I'm inclined to say something else could also play out. We could make sense like now this could be the after effects of the trade war and all that. I think there will be a real trade war kind of thing happening when Mars, before that it will be triggered by China's move or something, and that is going to create a bigger kind of crisis around that time period. So US will go through a challenging time period right now in this second eclipse actually. That will be a time. Of course, we are kind of building up the after effects of Russia's invasion. We'll begin to see that. And then the after effects of those decisions will also begin to become apparent at that point also. And definitely a trade will be a factor, new trading partners or new alliances or breaking down of pre-existing alliances, all that will play out. That's a challenge. Now, lunar eclipse happening exactly at the point of debilitation of Saturn is very, very tough. That is really, Saturn is the planet of survival actually. You're going to see a lot more people who are be in that survival mode. Mental balance will be lost. All that scarcity kind of problems is very strongly seen. But I would also say that this is the time period, where one needs to be really careful for these kind of matters also. Usually eclipses and so forth, I wouldn't recommend to be in a public place usually. In general, I wouldn't
Mars is
recommend
retrograde by this time.
Yeah, Mars is retrograde.
And that's
so
the
that,
ruler of the moon. So that's what concerns me.
Yeah, so that has its own challenges. So definitely there will be some challenges and all that. Yeah. So I'm inclined to say this particular problem with law and order, that can be a real problem during that time period. So law and order becomes a real theme. So the whole law and order is being lost, challenges around law and order mechanisms lacking funding and problems around that. All that kind of thing will also play out. But this eclipse in Libra is not easy. I cannot say being very close to Saturn's debilitation point is never easy actually. So in fact, what can happen, this is when a lot of employment problems will be triggered. So that's what I'm inclined to say. The problems with regard to career and of course immigration thing will also be a problem actually during this time period. You're going to see the immigration laws having a challenge, and then that is going to trigger many other things also. So I'm inclined to say a challenge will play out more than improvement in immigration does. Perhaps improvement, but there will be a challenge for sure during this eclipse time period. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Of course, as you mentioned, the fixed star, bodily injuries, unscrupulous defeat, destruction by fire. So there can be natural disasters for sure. Bodily injuries is different. Eclipse, Libra is kind of a hip region. So backaches, that kind of thing, hip region, that kind of thing is a problem actually. That's something in general, there can be some problem there. Usually, I would encourage Libra is also this country with relationships, and Libra is also house of sexuality. It's a 7,000, 8,000, both houses of sexuality, in my opinion. So you might begin to see some more challenges there also, So usually eclipse happening in Libra, usually the countries, US would have been partnered for a long time, might have a challenge actually. So breakdown of alliances is what I'm inclined to say. You might begin to see this whole, NATO might go through a big transformation around that time period, or the what could really mean, how much of your resources is going to be spending towards alliances, all that. That particular thing is going to be a real problem there, actually.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, for Hawaii, having Mars retrograde in the 11th house of communities, I mean, that's protest, especially
right,
in
yeah.
Gemini. They're using their voice.
Yeah. I think I'm inclined to say there'll be a big social media backlash of sorts and all that. And that will always happen. You're going to see that kind of thing coming in a big way. So Vox Populi kind of thing coming alive for Hawaii. That's what I'm inclined to say, actually.
Right. Well, hopefully Venus, in her Mula Tricona sign will help.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
But I think the female warrior, like you said, I think we're going to see a lot more of that especially by this time.
Yeah, Saturn is aspecting, which is a problem. So there will be a problem. And then at the same time, if you look at the degrees also, exact Saturn aspect is also, Saturn is at 24 degrees, very close to that, exactly 4th house from the Kendra house and the eclipse points. So that's also a challenge, actually. I'm inclined to say this is going to be a tough thing. Usually, I'm inclined to say Saturn being there and Dhanishta and all that, a land-based problem is more likely to happen. Some legal precedent of sort is being set in motion. That's what I'm inclined to say.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I'm really kind of excited for this cycle to get over with.
Yeah.
Because the next one we're going to have in Pisces and Virgo, and they're going to have 2 eclipses over the United States, and we're going to see some massive changes. And it's going to be tough at first, but I think on the end of it, we're going to be in a really good place, kind of like we have to go through all the hardships to get to the good stuff. So I'm, they didn't give us any breathing room between the pandemic and this Ukraine war. I mean, it really kind of ticks me off, to tell you the truth. They could have waited a little bit longer, like let us breathe a little bit before we have to dive into all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be heavy. All right, you guys. So thanks for watching yet again. And I want to let you know once again that I'm on Patreon. Look me up if you're interested in seeing these videos early. And go to my website to check out all of my aromatherapy products. And I have the Yantra Cosmic Healing Discs and raw gemstone bracelets. So thank you so much, Santhip, for doing this with me again this year. I really appreciate it. And, we're just going to have to stay strong this year and, really use that Mars energy to get ourselves back up on our feet and fight.
Yeah, definitely. I can say this is the year for Ganesha, Shiva, and Durga, so you'll see all those kind of archetypes coming into light. But yeah, I'm sure this will be, no matter what, this will be a very powerful year for self-transformation.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we are, we're just as a planet starting to become out of our teenager phase.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, so many stupid human tricks have been shown recently. And I think that, like you said, the women are really going to be coming forward during this time. So that's a blessing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you guys have, any questions, just contact me or Santhip. And of course, we're both available for readings and private tutoring as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. And until next time, Take care, and we'll see you then. Namaste. Thank you, Santhip.
Namaste. Yeah.